The views expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests, not Ben West Productions or its broadcasting affiliates.
Science, policy, and power. Today, we're joined by a leader who brings all three to the table. State Representative and microbiologist Dr. Jasmine Clark, from the Georgia House to the halls of Congress. She's taken science and service to a whole new level. Roll that intro. I've walked in many shoes, from the pulpit to the prison halls, behind the wheel of a big rig, and now as a medical cannabis patient and an advocate for truth. Some of you know me as Yo, the herbal trucker, but today I'm stepping in as Yo, the concerned citizen. This is Yo Rants, Oversized Load, Civics Edition. We're calling out power plays, exposing broken systems, and lifting voices that refuse to be silenced. Passion fuels purpose, purpose activates power, and power, that's how we shift the system. As Kendrick Lamar said, this revolution will be televised, and I'm adding to the channel lineup. This is a revolution in motion. This is Yo Rants, Oversized Load, Civics Edition. Welcome back, y'all. Today's guest is someone who has built her career at the intersection of science, public service, and community. She's a microbiologist, an educator, and a Georgia State Representative, serving District 108. And she brings a fact-driven perspective to some of the most important conversations happening here in our state. She's also stepping into a broader civic role as a candidate for Congress in Georgia's 13th Congressional District. We're grateful to have her here for an educational conversation about leadership, policy, and the realities shaping our communities. Please welcome Dr. Jasmine Clark.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, wow. Now I just gave that introduction, but I want you to introduce yourself. You know what? I'm gonna flip this over so it looks like I'm talking to you, because you know how it is. So that you can let our audience know about who you are. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Jasmine Clark. I am the state representative for Georgia's House District 108, which is located in Gwinnett County, so North Metro Atlanta. I've been a state representative since 2018, where I was first elected to bring a science voice to Georgia. That science voice comes from my background in microbiology. I have a PhD in microbiology. I have done research. I'm currently an assistant clinical professor at a local university. And what I wanted to do when I first ran for office was to bring that lens and that perspective to legislating in Georgia. Prior to being elected, I actually led the Atlanta March for Science, where 10,000 people took to the streets to say, we actually do care about science. We actually do care about facts. We actually do care about people making policy based on evidence and data and not just throwing ideology around, no matter whether it's true or not. And so after that, I said, I'm going to run for office to do exactly that. Looking at the current environment, I will also say I see that we have similar needs at the federal level. And so I've also endeavored to run for Congress in Georgia's 13th Congressional District to bring that science voice that I brought down here to Georgia to Washington, D.C. I see every single day, even if it's not a specific bill about science, how you can apply what you've done in science to policy making. Like, there are lots of overlaps. And I love the word that you used earlier, intersections. There are lots of intersections, even if, again, the policy doesn't say science in the title or in the body of the bill. There is still science embedded in that, in the way we approach things.
I mean, and not only that, you wear a lot of hats. And I see that when I was there last week at the forum, I met your daughter, and I didn't realize. I said, "Oh wow, she's here. She's active." Your mom, you're a professor, a microbiologist, a legislator. Which one of them prepared you most for politics?
All of them. So I believe that being in science really prepared me to ask the tough questions and to look at policy the same way I would look at any type of experimental question and say, what is the impact of this? What are the unintended consequences of this? What are we not seeing or saying about this? Because that's the way we do science. Like when you go out there and you're all like, I know my stuff. I've done these experiments, and you sit in a room full of other scientists who are like, yeah, but what about this? And have you considered this? Or have you tried this? I take that same energy to the Georgia State Legislature. Being a mom has definitely shown me, one, how to really approach things with the understanding of like having compassion and understanding that there are different people with different perspectives. And I don't know, I just feel like sometimes as a mom, it like activates a certain level of empathy that sometimes I wish some of my other colleagues had. And then being a professor, my whole job is to take complex concepts, and break them down to a group of people who, before they walked into the room, they did not know anything about that concept. That is exactly what I do at the state capitol a lot of times, and also what I do in order to bridge the gap between what's happening at the state capitol and what's happening in our community. Because a lot of times people in the community have no idea what bills are being introduced, what those bills are going to do, and they usually don't know until it impacts their life. And so that is why I think being a professor helps me with just being able to break things down the way they need to be broken down. So regular, everyday people who can't read legalese, I can barely read it, but they just want to know, what is this going to do for my household? How is this going to impact my ability to take care of my family? So,
yeah, I get it. And when you said that about a lot of people don't know what's really going on, and I initially started being involved with legislation because of my health and the fact that I needed medical cannabis. Before I was working, I was just living my life, and I didn't realize a lot of things was going on. But everybody claims they want leadership rooted in facts until someone shows up with actual data.
Yes.
That's one thing that you cannot lie is about data. Math is the same everywhere, even though it's some new math here and there.
It's not new math. It's just new ways of doing the math.
Okay, I got you.
I have a child that does math, and I'm like, girl, we did not do it like that. Just carry the one. I don't know what y'all doing. Just carry the one.
It's like you're going to have to pull out the calculator. But, we have so many different apps and everything like that. But that's one thing why we're concerned, too, about what's happening with the Department of Education.
Right.
And what I've noticed that 2 years ago, they passed a bill here in Georgia dealing with vouchers, and they're going to put it back in the state's hands too. And so that Georgia starts out the legislative session to where it looks like Georgia is directing the rest of the country in which way we're going to go. And from what I hear, actually, I'm going to let her say it herself. Check this out.
News this week, President Trump took a significant step toward delivering on a core campaign promise to finally close the Department of Education. To shrink the bloated federal bureaucracy, the Department of Education just entered into new interagency agreements with 4 agencies: the Departments of Labor, Interior, Health and Human Services, and State. These agencies will now ensure the delivery of legally required programs while also refocusing them to better serve students. This common sense action brings the Trump administration much closer to finally returning education where it belongs, at the state and local.
It's tough out here, y'all. So this new policy that they're putting forth basically removes certain degrees from the list of, quote, professional degrees. And this is specifically going to impact the ability for people to get financial aid to pursue these degrees. And so let's be clear. Let's set the stage for where we are as a country. We have a health care professional shortage. We have a shortage of nurses. We have a shortage of physician assistants. And to be clear, we also have a shortage of doctors because we have more doctors retiring than going into the profession, because now even becoming a doctor puts you in a political minefield. So we're in this situation now, and now they're basically trying to say that there are only certain professional degrees that are considered professional degrees, and therefore you cannot get the financial aid for them, which means there's a whole group of people in the population that will no longer be able to afford to become these different professions. Nurse practitioners are extremely important. Physicians assistants are extremely important. We have healthcare deserts right here in the state of Georgia. We literally have like half of our state does not have an OBGYN. Like more than half of the counties in our state do not have an OBGYN. We are in a position where we cannot afford to lose people going into healthcare professions. We definitely need to go in the opposite direction. But I feel like this current administration, they are doing this on purpose. They seem to want to dismantle and break down and destroy any type of progress that we've made as a country. And it doesn't make any sense except for the fact that they are never going to actually be impacted by this, because they already have access to the best doctors. They already have access to the best healthcare, medical care. And so they're not thinking about the people who will be impacted by these ridiculous decisions that they are making. And I work with nurses every day. I work in a nursing school. I work with people who are seeking their master's and seeking their doctorate. And it's an expensive endeavor, but it's one that you get a good return on investment because you are actually really out there going out into the community and helping people. And this administration does not respect people who do those things.
Yeah, and I see, so, like I said, back to the fact of seeing how some of these bills passed here in Georgia first, and then watching things federally. It's like, wait a minute, I saw this.
We've seen this before. Yeah, yes.
And it's like they're setting the stage, because I'm looking at all this transparency stuff, and also how they setting up to where they're not protecting the citizens. And right. A lot of that came from, like last year, we had some controversial bills, which just a lot started prior to that, where they wanted to take away cash bail. They wanted to go ahead and move forward and to silence the people's voices and to not allow them to actually get the hard fact data, which leads us to tort reform.
Yes. And
tort reform, along with the pesticides bill that passed there.
Right. Absolutely. That pesticide bill, one of the things about that pesticide bill that really concerned me was basically it tied, your ability to seek relief to, whatever the FDA said, at the same time that the administration was basically like, we're about to get rid of the FDA. And I'm like, y'all, we have to pay attention. Like, these bills don't happen in a vacuum. When a bill is happening, we got to look at the bigger picture. Again, this is why I say having this science background brings a different perspective to the Capitol, because I look at the question, but then I have to zoom out. That is what we do in science. And I think that approach would be, well served for a lot more people, because again, like, no one, I really hate to say this, and I'm not going to say no one because I'm not about absolutes. There are far too many people in positions of power, in elected positions, to make policy, to make laws, to impact people's lives, that only care about targeting a certain group or helping their buddies. And they do not care the collateral damage that happens. And when there is collateral damage, when you bring it up, they're like, hey, that's not my problem. I'm here to make sure that these people are good, or I'm here to make sure that these people are targeted because we don't like them. And I'm like, there's no singular policy that impacts just one group, and you are going to impact other groups no matter what, because we're all interconnected in some way. And policy is the same exact way. We can't make policy at the state level that invokes the federal level without acknowledging what's happening at the federal level. And that's one of the things that burned me up about that bill, was it was like completely blind to the fact that they're dismantling things at the federal level. We probably should not be tying anything to what's going on up there right now. So yeah, I'm with you. I remember that bill very distinctly, because I was like, almost in the same week, they were like, we're about to get rid of the FDA. And I'm like, but we got bills talking about the FDA. So yes.
And it was strange how fast that bill passed, because as soon as we saw it, I had spoke to Aviva. I know you're familiar with Aviva. And I remember she had an opportunity to testify. And I know that that bill cleared that committee, went the rules, and had a vote. I don't know if it was the same day or the next day.
The next day, yes. And meanwhile, these bills that actually help people will sit there for literally 2 years and never so much as get a hearing. So that's a whole other topic.
No, that's right on schedule, because that's coming to your bill, HB 496. Oh my God. When I saw that, I said, this is wonderful. You're thinking about the people. You're thinking about protecting people's Fourth Amendment right. Tell us about that 496. Yeah.
So House Bill 496 is, and this is if you've never watched the proceedings in the Capitol, this is a phrase that is said often. House Bill 496 is a simple bill. It basically just says, here in the state of Georgia, you cannot be stopped or searched just because of the smell or the scent of marijuana or other cannabis products. So right now, in order to be stopped or searched, they need to have some type of probable cause. And this bill says that the smell alone cannot be the sole probable cause for stop or search. And I think this is so important, because here in the state of Georgia, we actually have legalized hemp products. And so there are lots of, and here's it, hemp products have the same basic scientific structure as marijuana and any other cannabinoid product. So they smell the same. And so there is no reason why a person can legally be using a hemp product and be subjected to being searched or stopped by law enforcement when it could be completely legal. So it's like we have to be honest about what that means when a person says, oh, I smell something and therefore I should be able to, do whatever I want at this point. Now I have probable cause. Because let's also just talk about smell is subjective. I might walk into a room and be like, it's funky in here. And somebody else be like, I don't smell anything. Smell is subjective. Yes. And so I really think that this is a bill that is long overdue, even if hemp products weren't legal in Georgia. The fact that just smell alone can be used means that I could literally be a law enforcement person, walk up to you and say, you smell like marijuana. And now I have all the probable cause I need to search your car, to search your person, to search your passengers in your vehicle, all of those things. This bill would say that is not the case. You have to, if you're going to have probable cause, it needs to be something more than smell.
I'm going to continue to share this about Georgia's prison infrastructure, the United States prison infrastructure, to where people are incarcerated. But you know what? I'm going to let the Lafayette sheriff share. He said it out loud.
Oh,
I'm going to let you, I want to see this. Yes. You're ready. Here we go.
Place out there. I don't want state prisoners, okay? They are a necessary evil to keep the doors open, that we keep a few or keep some out there. And that's the ones that you can work. That's the ones that can pick up trash, the work release programs. But guess what? Those are the ones that they're releasing. In addition to the bad ones, and I call these bad, in addition to them, they're releasing some good ones that we use every day to wash cars, to change oil in our cars, to cook in the kitchen, to do all that where we save money.
What? He said it out loud.
You know what's very interesting? I literally had this conversation the other day because we were talking about violence prevention and intervention. And I swear I had this exact conversation where I said, you know, our prison industry is the reason why it's so difficult to see investment and crime prevention. It is the reason why that every time we move forward in criminal justice reform, someone finds a way to roll it back because of exactly what he just said. I didn't even know this video existed, but he said exactly what I said. I said, they are invested in making sure that there are prisoners because those prisoners provide them free labor or very, very inexpensive labor. And they want to make sure that that labor is still available to them. And so when people are saying, I don't understand why it's so hard to get more after school programs, to get these violence intervention programs, I don't understand why it's so hard to, you know, do criminal justice reform that is more on the side of intervention and prevention than on incarceration. I said, because of money. It is a whole economy out there. And, you know, I was saying this because I heard it in the back rooms and in the conversations, but this man just said it on video. And I think this is a larger point. At this point, they're not even ashamed of it. Like, there is no shame in them saying, hey, we need people who aren't really dangerous, who aren't really, you know, a threat to society in any way. They've done something minor. They're the good guys. We need them out here picking up trash on the side of the road because we can't send the criminals out because they might do something. So we gotta get some good guys. And this is one of the ways they do this, by finding ways to have more interaction between law enforcement and people. And then in communities that are over policed, oftentimes they will find something as simple as, I don't like the way you smell, to start a process to find a way to get them locked up and into the system.
But I don't even smell, I don't even really smell it. You know, as far as the flower, I have to really just put my nose in it. And the thing about me, I can smell dust off a gnat. And that's what my wife laughs about. But the thing about the subjectiveness of the smell, that's just a lead. That's kind of like having an air freshener in your window. If a cop wants to stop you, that's some of the bad laws that's still on the books now.
Correct.
And I'm just like, I'm a former correctional officer and I've seen it. I work details. I never had an opportunity to work the governor's detail where they go and clean the governor's mansion.
Oh, so you tell me, I didn't even know that. Oh.
Yes. I worked at Metro State Prison, and I came in as a young officer, and it's like they get these kids young, fresh out of high school, not knowing anything, put you in GSP down there at the Georgia State Patrol Post or whatever. Went down there. They trained me to a point to where it was us against them, and it shouldn't have been that way. Right. They put so much fear in us about being incarcerated to us to follow the rules, which makes you wonder, is this the same thing that they're doing with ICE?
And it works for them. And I think that is one of the reasons why I think it's very important for people in our communities to know what's happening down at the state capitol, because I think that what we are saying right now makes a lot of sense to people. But I don't think a lot of people put two and two together as to why it's so difficult to get good policy and why these policies that allow them to find ways to incarcerate people or to increase the likelihood of an interaction with law enforcement allows them to profile people. Because let's be clear, a lot of times this I smell something starts with profiling. There used to be this thing people used to say all the time of like, driving while black. If you are a black person and you had a really, really nice car in an area where they felt like, oh, you shouldn't be able to afford that, they profiled you. And then they would say something like your tint is too dark, or you got a light out or something like that. And a way to just start the interaction so they can find a way to try to go after you. These are the things that are still happening in our society. A lot of people want to believe that these things just went away. They didn't go away. And now, even when we try to make laws that say, hey, you can't do that. You can't just profile me because I have a nice car. Someone in the state capitol is finding a way to get around that so that they can actually do exactly that thing.
And you know, when I was young, I was living in this box full of butterflies. That's what my sister, she usually says that.
I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah, I just saw everything as beautiful and just everybody's trying to do the right thing. I thought a lot of people was just trying to do what was right. Like you said, subjective, like smell is subjective, right is subjective, wrong is subjective. What's right for some might not be right for others. So my question is, how is it that legislators overlook a lot of their constituents that are actually voting for them?
So I'm going to take your Uno card and put down an Uno reverse.
Okay,
Why is it that constituents who are overlooked, who are not heard, who do not feel represented, and who are being harmed by the policies that are passed by their elected officials, why do they keep voting for those people? And I say this to say a lot of times it's information. I'm answering my own question. There's an information hole where a lot of times people don't know the reason why you're in the situation you're in, the reason why you haven't been impacted in this negative way is because the person that you went to the ballot box and voted for is sitting up in the state capitol passing bills that are harming your life. And so the problem is, to answer your original question, there is no consequence to passing bad policy because people pass this bad policy. They know it's bad. They've been told it's bad. They know it's going to harm someone, and they hedge their bets that enough people just aren't going to know what happened, that they're still going to be able to get back in that seat later. And so this is where I believe we need to amplify when bad things are happening. We have to amplify who is doing it. We got to start amplifying our villains. We just don't talk about enough the people in positions of power that know they're doing something harmful and they're just doing it anyway because there is never a consequence to doing the bad thing. Here's what I will say. In this last election for PSC, we saw what happens when you highlight, hey man, your electricity bill is high.
Yeah.
And there is a whole group of elected people who determine your electricity bill rates. And so if you don't like that your electricity bill keeps going higher and higher and higher while your paycheck has not moved a bit, then these are the people who are doing it. And these people need to go. That to me was a great example of when you actually tie what is happening to people with who is doing the thing and people are aware, they will actually say, hold up, I don't like this. Because in that race, there were counties that went for Trump by 20 plus points that actually voted in the opposite direction. And maybe that's just because more Democrats went out and Republicans said, you know what, I might not vote for a Democrat, but I'm not going to vote for this Republican that keeps raising my bill either. I don't know the math. I haven't gone down to that granular level yet. But what I do know is when we actually pointed out the impact of who you vote for, people said, I feel empowered enough to go out here and try to change my situation. And I think now Republicans are on notice that if we are successful in amplifying the things that they do, they are in trouble. There will be consequences.
And that's one thing that I can say about them. I'm just wondering about the moral compass of the Republican Party. one thing I can say is that they do stick together.
Yes.
Unlike what we've seen, you see Democrats are voted in as a Democrat, but just like those 8 in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, that voted to reopen up
with nothing, with nothing. They got nothing in return for that. Yes. Ooh, I'm still burnt up about that. Yes.
And it's like, people are going to remember this. And a lot of times people brand things with these different buzzwords, just like, what is that? The Obamacare really is Affordable Care Act, correct?
Right. Correct.
And by it being the Affordable Care Act, a lot of people don't realize, since they branded it, that's why branding matters. So it's okay. We're going to continue to use this buzzwords. We're going to continue to pass laws that's already the law. So say, for instance, we're going to say, if you are an illegal person here in this state, you can't vote, but you already can't vote.
Yes, so, exactly. and this is what they do. It all the time. I feel like when I'm in the state legislature, a good unhealthy chunk of the bills that we pass are just something to go on someone's campaign flyer. They don't care about how it impacts people. They don't care about the people at all. They just want to have something cool to put on their campaign flyer. And that really does bother me. Oftentimes I'm like, you're here impacting 10 million plus people. I'm gonna need you to care a little bit more about how these policies actually impact real people and not care only about how cool this is gonna look on your next flyer for your campaign. And so this is the problem I have a lot of times with policy making, is that I don't think a lot of policymakers, and I'm not saying all, because I for one, am not one of these people, but I think there are too many policymakers out there who their bottom line is getting elected. It's not serving. It's not helping the people. It's not, having good governance. Their bottom line is how many donations I can get and can I get reelected?
And speaking of that, I realized that a lot of legislators go in just the average citizen, and next thing you know, they end up with quite a bit of money. But the federal minimum wage is $7.25, but Georgia is $5.15.
Correct.
Which will have that continual cycle, I believe, for the prison industry, so that it can continue to arrest people.
Absolutely.
Do you believe a person can realistically, I know this is just like a rhetorical question, but realistically, you'll take it. You believe a person can realistically live on $7.25 an hour?
Absolutely not. Here's an interesting thing. So I have children. I have 2. I have a son who's in college and I have a daughter who's in high school. And my son who is in college is in the working world. And he actually lives in a state where their minimum wage is, I want to say like $13 or $15 an hour. So much higher than Georgia, like 3 times higher than Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I remember him getting his first paycheck and saying, like, he was very excited, but then he was like, Mom, I have coworkers who have families. How are they surviving off of this money? Because I just want to go out here and buy me some shoes and some clothes and some groceries and maybe have a little bit of money to hang out with my friends. And there's not much left after that. How are people able to afford homes and cars and bills, making the same thing that I'm making, where I can barely afford a pair of shoes and a sweater and a night out with my friends? Yeah. And I really sat with that for a moment, because again, this is, mind you, he makes almost twice the minimum wage. And this is the way he feels. Down here in the state of Georgia, if you make $7.25 an hour, you are in poverty. Like just straight up, like federal poverty level, like by definition, you are in poverty. And there is not a single solitary place that you will be able to live making $7.25 an hour, working 40 hours a week. You won't be able to live anywhere, at least not solo.
No.
And I think that in a dignified society, in a society that acknowledges like basic decency and dignity, if you are out here working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, the least you should be able to do is to afford a roof over your head. And if that is not the case, then we either need to increase the wages, decrease the amount of how much housing costs, or something in the middle, which is both. And that's what I think actually needs to happen. And I said this before the other day, and I'll say it again. I do not think it is a radical idea at all that you should be able to afford to live if you go to work every single day. That's not radical to me. I think it is more radical to believe that a person should work themselves to the bone and still be homeless, work themselves to the bone and still not be able to afford to put food on their table. That to me is a radical proposition.
The fact that I think you all like what, $22,000 a year, and then you get like a $7,000. Tell us about the local pay. Tell us about the local salary of a state representative.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that state representatives like myself do not make what federal Congress people make. So people in Congress are making six figures. But at the state level, we make basically $22,000. And actually, when I first got elected, it was $17,000. So we've gotten a little raise since then. That said, we that's all we make. And so what that does is it creates a barrier to entry for a lot of people that want to be able to serve their community through elected office. It's a barrier for them because they are not going to be able to afford to live off of that. Because if you make $22,000 a year, which a lot of people in our country and in our state do, if you make that, you are you're not able, again, to afford to live anywhere. And so a lot of the people who are serving in our state capitol, they are doing so not because of the money, but because of the service. Now, that there's two buckets. You got people like me. I have to work a full-time job. If I'm going to be in public service, I also have to have a full-time job. So I technically have two jobs. You could even argue maybe even three jobs because running for Congress is also a job. I have multiple jobs in order to sustain myself and be a public servant. There are other people, though, in there that are independently wealthy. That $22,000 that they get, that's just chump change. That's just change in their pocket. And so if we're not careful, a lot of times what you'll see is that our elected positions will be held by those who are wealthy enough to not work and less by those who are feeling the everyday struggles of the people in their community because they are part of that community. They're shopping in the same stores. They're feeling when they get that bill, they feel that bill the way some of my colleagues will never. They probably don't even look at their bills. They got somebody to do that for them. I think that's really important for people to know because I do think it also impacts the type of policy that we get. A lot of times, again, we only get $7,000 in our discretionary budget. And that $7,000 is meant to help us with travel to conferences, but also to pay our staff. So we can only pay our staff up to $7,000 with our discretionary budget. So the way we have to pay our staff is through campaign funds. And the way we get campaign funds is by, calling people, getting donations. But a lot of our campaign funds come from lobbying groups and things like that are like, hey, you need to staff your office. Here's a couple $1,000s to make sure that you're able to do that. But then they circle back around and say, hey, there's this bill that's coming up and I need you to take a look at it. And don't forget those couple $1,000s that we gave you to make sure that you could staff your office so you could actually do this work. So not everyone is going to fall prey or victim to that, but it is a reality that some of them will. And so that's something we also have to think about when we talk about policy and what passes and also what doesn't pass in our state legislature.
And so real people, not to say that there aren't real people, but a lot of times they don't know what's going on because they're still just trying to live. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that we have to continue to try to amplify, to figure out a way to stop the PACs and make sure that we have public servants in the office, in the seat, that works in politics versus a politician doing what they do, because like with the lobbyists, I had said a while back I was going to become a lobbyist. I was thinking, yeah, I'll be a lobbyist, but somebody asked me this question: what type of lobbyist will you be?
Because they're different types.
Right now, I'm looking for Congress. You flipped a seat, defended it in 4 cycles. You fought redistricting, and now you're running for Congress.
Absolutely.
Why now?
Well, a number of reasons. So the political environment that brought me to run for state level government is the same political environment that we are in right now, except now I feel like it's worse. So, for example, when I first got elected in 2018, I ran on being a science voice for Georgia because science was under attack at the federal level. And I don't know if people remember Kellyanne Conway, where she went around telling people that they could have their alternative facts. And I was like, no, absolutely not. We need some voices in government that are going to stand up for the truth. That's why I got into politics in the first place. Now we've got people like RFK Jr. This man has just completely, in such a short amount of time, dismantled our public health infrastructure in our country. They started out with Elon Musk coming in and just firing everybody without, knowing anything about anything. And then RFK came in, behind him to just completely finish the job that Elon Musk started and dismantling and destroying everything. We've got people running departments that were wrestling moguls. Like, what? Like, nothing about education, but you're up here running the Department of Education. You've got people that are in these positions that actually hate their job. They don't want that job. They want that job to not exist. And so I look at everything going on in our country and I said, look, I ran originally to bring a science voice for Georgia. I feel like the country could use a science voice in the United States Congress to stand up for the people when it comes to public health, when it comes to research, when it comes to universities and education in general. And when I'm a mom as well, when it comes to issues that impact our families. Again, I'm not independently wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes I open a bill and I have to look at it real hard. So I am also wanting to come to Congress from a lens of I'm just a regular, everyday person who understands what regular, everyday people are dealing with. And so I say all that to say I have the legislative track record from down here in the State House. I know the committee structure. I know how bills run. I know the background, the foundational stuff. I want to take that to Washington, D.C. while also bringing in my lens and perspective as a scientist, a researcher, a mom, and I want to bring that to D.C. I think it's needed right now. We have got to have some counter voices to RFK Jr. and his crazy self. Like, we just do. And if I'm elected, I will be the first woman with a science PhD, the first mom with a science PhD, the first Black woman with a science PhD to ever serve in Congress. We've been a country for almost 250 years. It's past time. I think it's time. The time is now. And the person that I'm running against, he has served honorably over the years, but right now he is absent. And for whatever reason he is absent, I do believe the people of this district deserve a present congressperson. And that's what I want to be.
Just like with trucking, I had to stop trucking. I love trucking. but my health wouldn't allow me to do it. So, and it wasn't safe for everyone else. And plus, it wasn't safe for me. Now, you mentioned about your district, and I know I mentioned about redistricting, because I remember the representative used to be my representative, and they redistrict. And so you district 13. Tell us the area of District 13.
Absolutely. So Congressional District 13 is Gwinnett County, starting at Lawrenceville and going all the way south. So we've got Snellville, Loganville, Lilburn, the Stone Mountain portions of Gwinnett County. If you live in House District 108, where I represent now, you live in Congressional District 13 as well. We've also got the entirety of Rockdale County. So places like Conyers are in Congressional District 13. We've got parts of Newton County going basically from Rockdale all the way over to the Alcovy River. If you're a student at Emory-Oxford, you are in Congressional District 13. Then we kind of go and circle down and go south to Henry County, where we've got parts of Henry County basically going down to the McDonough area. And we've also got parts of Clayton County as well. So Jonesboro and places like that. And then there's this little teeny tiny sliver, like 1 or 2 precincts in DeKalb County and the Flakes Mill area. So right where DeKalb and Henry butt up against each other. Okay. And that is Congressional District 13. So if you live in Georgia, you know that's a crazy design, but that's gerrymandering for you. That's the way they draw these districts in our state. And if you also live in Georgia, you know there are a lot of different communities between Gwinnett County and Clayton County and everything in between. Yeah. So it's a very diverse district in a lot of different ways. And because of that, I think that it deserves a congressperson that can really dig in and be present and be receptive and accessible to all the different interests that are found in this one very large and diverse congressional district. That's what I want to do.
And when I first met you, I met you because I know I was at the Capitol, and that's what you said, being present. You're not even my state rep, but I was able to approach you and ask you a question. And I remember the first thing I asked you about was the ADA conditions there at the Capitol. It's not the best thing for people to actually have conditions to come.
Right. To get in there. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want voters in District 13 to understand about the power of this seat?
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to understand that your congressperson actually works for you, and so you should be able to reach them. I want people to understand that it is the job of your congressperson to, yes, work in Washington, D.C., but also be very available to you right here in Georgia. If you're having issues with your passport, it's your congressperson that can help you get that appointment at the passport office. Oh. If you're having issues with Medicare, it is your congressperson that can help with that. If you're having issues getting a visa or anything dealing with immigration, it is your congressperson that is supposed to help you. But you need to actually know who your congressperson is. Yeah. And how to get in contact with them. And I have talked to way too many people in this district that have said, even when I did reach out and ask them for their help, I never got it. I recently, and I'll tell this story very briefly, I recently talked to the family of Rodney Taylor, who is currently incarcerated in the Stewart Detention Center by ICE because of something that happened like many, many years ago when he was a teenager, and then they came in and they just went after this young man. And he's in his, I want to say he's in his 40s now. So I'm talking about like a really long time. Mm-hmm. And the family reached out to every single person that they thought of to reach out. They reached out to John Ossoff. They reached out to Raphael Warnock. And they even reached out to Congressman Hank Johnson. And every single person was like, you actually have to reach out to Congressman Scott because he is your congressman. Now, this is a man who owned a business in Congressman Scott's district, who lived in Congressman Scott's district, who pays his taxes. He did all of these things. They reached out to him in February when he was incarcerated for only 30 days. It is November. They did not hear back from Congressman Scott's office until there was intervention by myself calling Congressman Scott's office until late October. That's unsustainable. You cannot do that. There is a person in a detention center that called you in February and you didn't answer until October, and you didn't answer until your political or your campaign opponent, election opponent, reached out to your office and you didn't want to give them the ability to say, oh, I helped. So now you want to help. And then basically your answer to them was, there's nothing we can do. Why would you do that? And people don't deserve that. That's not the way we should run. And so I am like completely dedicated to making sure that my constituent services is extremely robust, because I've had a congressperson with great constituent services, and I've had a congressperson like Congressman Scott who is completely absent. People deserve better than that.
But you've been outspoken about misinformation. Now, my question is, how do we fix it, or is there a way to fix it?
I think we just really have to be intentional. The same way the side that is spreading the misinformation is very intentional about spreading that misinformation. We have to be more intentional and more bold in spreading correct information. They put a lot of money behind spreading that information. We got to invest in putting just as much money behind good information. But we also need to have the good information. Having a person with a science background who is data-driven, evidence-driven, and a person who has had the opportunity to use that science background to spread the truth. So quickly, my first time as a freshman legislator in the Georgia State Legislature, my first time in the well was to call out Republicans when they lied on a bill, the abortion bill. So they were trying to ban abortion. They made up an organization and then quoted that made up organization with a quote that justified the bill. And this would have gone into our laws. Like that lie just would have been sitting there for forever. But I called them out on it because I read the bill. I cited the source, or I looked at the source that was cited and realized that source never, ever existed. This is why having people with science backgrounds who just approach things a little differently than maybe other people do is so important, because I called them out on it and they took that information out. So if you look at the bill that finally passed, all that stuff is gone. But it took calling them out to do it. We got to do that on a federal level as well. We got to call out the BS, and we got to do it loudly and confidently. And so that's why it's good to have people who are researchers there, because I was confident when I called out my opponent for not voting. I didn't just look at one thing and say, oh, he hasn't voted, I'm going to go. We did our research first. And then we said, he did not vote in the presidential election that got us Donald Trump. He did not vote in the recent PSC election that was all about making sure that our electricity bills went down. That is, to me, egregious to be a sitting congressperson and not voting. But again, I am the type of person that before I'm going to call you out, I'm going to make sure I know my stuff. That's what we have to do on the Democratic side as well. Because here again, they'll just say stuff. We got a health and human services person that's like, hey, Tylenol causes autism. And then the next day he's like, oops, my bad. I actually can't say that because there's no evidence of that. And then the next day he's changed the CDC website to basically say that all the evidence that we do have about vaccines and autism, that those things don't exist anymore. And we need to be able to be just as bold as they are when they lie. A lie don't care who tell it. The truth has to prevail.
Yeah, because I wasn't hearing a whole bunch about measles, hoof and mouth disease, all this stuff that's popping up out the blue. Like Jumanji board has gone to stage 3. You know?
I always say, like, somebody in here playing Jumanji and they need to just shut it down. Because, like, come on now. We're falling apart. Measles, whooping cough, Like, we are seeing whooping cough diseases. That is a vaccine that you get. It is the same vaccine that vaccinates you against tetanus. It's all in the same vaccine. We should not be seeing a reemergence of whooping cough. In the state of Georgia, we need 95% of people to be immunized against measles, mumps, and rubella in order to have herd immunity, where people who are vulnerable are not going to be susceptible to getting the disease, because it's like we create a hedge of protection around them. We have now dropped down into the 80-something%. So we no longer are a protective state for those who are vulnerable, those who can't get vaccinated because they're too young or because they're immunocompromised. Like, we're just leaving these people vulnerable. And this is all due, like 100% due to misinformation that has now skewed our society in a way that there's so many people who are not seeking protective measures. And I'm a microbiologist and I study microbial history. And when these vaccines first came out, people were clamoring to get them because they did not want to get sick. When polio first happened, people wanted that polio vaccine because they were seeing their friends wake up one day paralyzed. Like, we have switched somehow we have switched to a society where we are so privileged to have lived in a society where people were immunized against these horrible things that now we don't think we need to be immunized. And so that's where we are now. And that's why we need leaders that are going to tell the truth. And unfortunately, that's not happening.
Are you listening? Damn.
All right, it's time for the Herbal Trucker Awakening Moment. Or, you got 60 or 90 seconds if you want to do an awakening moment or if you want to do a rant. So it's up to you. And you go ahead and take the stage.
So I am Dr. Jasmine Clark, and I am a current sitting state representative that sees what happens when government works, but also what can happen when government is not working for the people. I'm running for Congress as well, because I've seen that right now government is not working for the people. We have people in Congress that are hell-bent on making healthcare completely unaffordable and unavailable for people. And they are willing to take food off of people's tables in order to do that. We have people in Congress right now that do not understand just how difficult things are for the regular, everyday working family to put food on the table. They are not caring about the people. And I'm a person who has compassion and I care. And so I'm running for Congress because we need leaders that are going to be present. We need leaders that are going to do the bare minimum of democracy, and that includes voting. And we need leaders who actually have the vibrancy and the longevity to make sure that they're going to be present in our communities. I am that person. I'm Dr. Jasmine Clark. I also want to circle back and say, while I am running for Congress, I'm a sitting state representative, and in the next legislative session, I am pushing for civil rights. That is why I'm pushing a civil rights bill, because a lot of people don't know in the state of Georgia, we do not have comprehensive civil rights and at the state level. And so if your civil rights are violated, you have to go to the federal level to get some relief. That's not a thing that we should have. I want to bring parity to the state level so people can go to state level, which should be more accessible. I'm also pushing my no scent bill, or the bill that says that you cannot be searched or stopped strictly because of the quote scent of marijuana by law enforcement. And I am also just pushing for any bills that are going to bring human decency and dignity to our communities. I want safe communities, but I also, and I want to acknowledge that every person deserves respect. And so with that, I'm Dr. Jasmine Clark. I am so thankful to you, Yolanda, the Herbal Trucker, for having me on today. This was an amazing conversation. I wish we could go even longer. And yeah, I love it. Have a great one. Oh, right. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, Jasmine4ga.com. And all of my social media is at Jasmine4ga.
All right. Well, you know what? Thank you so much. You go ahead, and I know you got busy things to do, and we'll catch you. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon. I hope to talk to you next year.
I'm sure I'll see you soon.
For sure.
It's the Hurl trucker coming through the airways. Real talk, no breaks. This is where truth stays. Rolling heavy with stories untold. Not just cannabis, we break the mold. From the streets to the halls, we hit every lane. Rants with purpose, changing the game. It's life, it's laws, it's facts we unfold. This is oversized love, and we're setting the tone. Yo, rants on the mic, no fear, no code. The truth's too big, so hosted by the Hurl truck on track. Keep it real, keep it raw, ain't no turning back. We go beyond green, it's deeper than smoke. Every rant, every guest provokes and evokes. Talking life, laws, and everything between.